covering everything that you need to know in talent experience.
People applying for new positions is like the cherry on top.
With the technology to attract talent.
Recruiters always know their best talent.
The AI just learned to use that information.
Inclusion efforts across the organization.
Tell me what it's like to work through associate story.
Interviews with leaders in the industry. Talk about what's new in HR tech. What are the hot topics? We're here every week, folks. Weekly look at the latest and greatest topics in HR.
Welcome everyone to Talent Experience Live, covering everything that you need to know in talent acquisition, recruiting, and of course, human resources. We like to say here that Talent Experience Live is the greatest show on the internet, and you know what? No one has objected to that. So it still is the back-to-back week greatest show on the internet. I'm your host, Devin Foster, and Talent Experience Live is proudly brought to you by the team here at Phenom. Our purpose at Phenom, I thought you'd never ask. It is to help 1 billion people find the right job. That's not 1 million, that's not 1,000, that is 1 billion. And we do this through our Talent Experience platform, which helps candidates find the right fit faster, employees evolve in their current roles and beyond, recruiters achieve some next level productivity and efficiency as managers build better teams with data, analytics, and automation. Now, automation, bit of a buzzword in the industry. You may be asking yourself, Devin, how does Phenom do that? Well, we do this, of course, through super slick artificial intelligence and machine learning. So a lot goes into that, as I'm sure you all know. If you'd like to learn more and figure out how Phenom's AI and machine learning works, head over to phenom.com to learn more. Click that demo button if you're interested. I love getting Phenom demos. We had Jackie on a couple weeks ago, solutions engineer, talking about boomerang employees. Perhaps she'll give you a demo. So definitely check that out. But now that we have paid the bills, we have an awesome topic today. Today, we are joined by industry thought leader in Phenom CHRO Jess Elmquist and Director of Product Marketing Tom Tate as they reveal the biggest priorities across the industry, across human resources, across talent acquisition, and across talent management as well, and why purposeful mindset and culture are the most valued form of currency for today's talent. But before we get into that, one thing that is a tradition around these parts is to do an icebreaker question, to reach out to you, the audience. This is a live show, so having that interaction is what makes it so special. Now, just a little sneak peek before we get into it. I know that Jess has one of my favorite analogies, and it is all around a salad and a salad bowl and what makes company culture so special and how that can equate to a salad. So before we get into today's topic, I'm asking you, what is your favorite salad dressing? I'll give you mine as you hop into the comments section. Personally, I am a sucker for balsamic vinaigrette and a little bit of olive oil. Why? You may be asking. Because my favorite salad is a caprese. Shout out to the Italians. It is fantastic. A little bit of mozzarella, a little bit of tomato, a little bit of basil on top, perhaps some salt and pepper if you're feeling a little spicy. So I'd love to hear what your favorite salad dressing is. Shout out to the Italians. Shout out to Italian vinaigrette. And as we do that, we are going to dive right into today's topic because they get super in-depth. It's a great episode. You don't want to miss any of it. But keep in mind, businesses don't create value. People do. And how do they unleash their full potential? It is all around mindset. And Jess and Tom dive into that a little bit more. I see a couple people chiming in with their favorite salad dressings here. Garlic expressions. Jen says it's not really a salad dressing, but that's how she uses it. I think that's great. I see Rebecca said Thousand Island. That is awesome. I always wondered, how did it get its name? Might have to do a Google search after this. Andrea says avocado and hot peppers. Can't go wrong with a little avocado. If you're at Chipotle, though, guac does cost extra. Don't forget about it and bring that pocket change. And Anna likes to say that her favorite salad dressing is olive oil. So as you enjoy your lunch, maybe it is salad, throw your favorite dressing on there. I'm super happy that nobody said ranch dressing, because I'd like to ask, what else do you like to put mayonnaise on? But neither here nor there. Without any more further hesitation, here is Jess Elmquist, CHRO here at Phenom, and Tom Tate, Product Marketing Director here at Phenom, to talk a little bit about salad and about people and company culture.
Amazing guest today. You can see I'm in the office. This is rare for me. I'm usually in my little dungeon at home, you know, with the dark lights and all the guitars in the background. But I'm super excited to be in the office because we have an amazing guest who flew into Ambler, Pennsylvania. So he's here with us in PA. We have Jess Elmquist. Jess, welcome. How are you?
It's good to be here, man. I'm excited. I've been a fan of the show for a long time.
Yes.
Like you said, you're serving the internet, and I encourage people, if they're in talent, if they want to know the latest and greatest, TXL is the place to actually jump in.
Yes.
Because it's not only inspirational, it's practical. So I'm a big fan. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for coming into the office.
I'm so excited to have you here. And listen, Jess Elmquist is Phenom's new CHRO and Chief Evangelist. He just joins within months. So we are super excited. But this is not the first time the Phenom family, Phenom fans, have seen Jess. So I first got to see Jess at IMHR 2020. So this was, at the height of the pandemic. This is in the fall. We've gone through so many changes, and Phenom put together IMHR, which was an amazing virtual event.
Yeah.
And you were one of our keynote sessions. So you gave a session on mental health, which I thought was just absolutely amazing. I'm sure we will touch on that topic today.
Yeah, for sure.
But at the time, you were Chief Learning Officer and Executive Vice President of HR at Lifetime. So tell us a little bit. Let's learn the origin story of Jess Elmquist. One of the things we often say on TXL is people don't just wake up when they're kids and say, hey, I really want to get into human resources. I want to get into HR. So I'm sure you have a unique journey that brought you to Lifetime. So why don't you share just a little bit about how you got into this space?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I think people have a lot of tangential stories about how they get into whatever it is that they end up getting to.
Sure.
I think it's a very low percentage of people that study in college and then go out and do what they did and they studied in college. Although I would say that I have a warm kind of place in my heart for people that choose to get into the service-oriented place like HR. I like to think about it as human capital, kind of that broad approach to how we're looking at people. And I would say that the other piece of, like, if I think about my origin story, it really comes back to probably a little bit of my family of origin. So I come from a family of teachers, public educators, college professors, and so I was modeled from early on that service, a profession is service. Sure. Right. So you're never doing something just for the outcome of profitability or something. There's something that's happening inside of that process while you're in the job, making a paycheck, helping a company, helping a school, but you're doing something in between. So I think that actually set me really early on in my life for wanting to be a part of people's journeys. And if I think about HR in companies, I think HR in companies is about giving people an experience, a container. People call it culture. I use the metaphor of a salad bowl. Yeah. Like if you chop up a bunch of lettuce and tomatoes and carrots and things like that, and you say salad is served and you throw it on a counter, people are going to be like, what in the world? I don't understand. But if you take those same ingredients and you create a container, a culture, and say, this is who we are, come into this container and then consume this, all of a sudden people are like, oh, I get it. I buy into it. I want to be a part of it. And that was the storyline. So even from my formative years, I knew that making a difference in people's lives was an outcome along the journey of helping a business, for instance, be unbelievably successful. So fast forward then, actually graduated from college with an education degree, became a school teacher. I taught economics and American history for 6 years.
Awesome.
And felt like I wanted to do something different. I loved teaching. I loved the opportunity to impact people, but I had some other goals. And so I stepped into this startup company called Lifetime in Minneapolis. And I would say that one of the accidental things that happened that I would encourage a lot of people that are in HR or thinking about being in HR or want to grow their career in HR to do is I jumped in on the business side. So I was in sales and marketing, became a VP of sales and marketing at the company. So I was in operations, really understood the business. Then as the company grew, and I had the background, right? I had the right education, the right pedigree. I knew people. I started to migrate in and start to answer the HR question at Lifetime as we grew from a small startup into a really big company, eventually IPOing, going public with a couple PE firms, IPOing again. So my journey was set point of let's make a difference in people's lives. Let's find places and vocations that allow you to do that. And here's what I think. I think most people that are CHROs or are in talent, they have a service mindset of wanting to help other people become the best version of themselves that they can be.
Yes.
That's what I love about HR.
Yeah.
And I think people, want to peg HR as, cartoons that make HR evil and all that. You know what? Those things happen. Those things it's hard to do HR. That is not why we're in the business. And so that was my journey, is through Lifetime, just grew into the expertise. And with a fast growth company, you're hit with a lot of things that you need to learn and get good at fast. And so that was the journey. It was, kind of a way led to way, but it got to a place where I found out a place that I could really kind of exercise my passion of making a difference in people's lives and really help businesses grow.
Yeah. A couple of things you said there that I just absolutely loved. I love that, it's really this amalgamation of purpose and drive that brought you to HR. But that idea of starting on the business side first, you don't often hear that. A lot of folks, they do end up on the people side. But when you think about HR and this goal of moving people into the best version of themselves, helping them evolve, knowing the business is critical, right? Knowing the inside and out of the business is critical. So I think ultimately for any young folks out there who are listening, who are interested in HR, I think that's a really interesting path to consider. Yeah. So I'm glad that you said that. But you're here now. You're here at Phenom, and we are so absolutely delighted to have you here at Phenom. So why don't you share with us what was it about Phenom and kind of what led you to be sitting here with me today, having this conversation?
Yeah, no, I'm really excited to tell that story because Lifetime was an amazing journey for me. It was almost 20 years of working and breathing that business. I love that business because it was purpose driven, right? And leaving that business after that many years, it was time. Like, one of the things that I'm really starting to define is, what does that second half of the journey look like?
Sure.
How do I want to manifest and present myself in the world? And I knew that it was time for me and my family to just move to that different thing. So saying goodbye to my wonderful family at Lifetime, looking for that next opportunity. I think relationships are so important, right? When you find people that you connect with, you maintain and build those relationships. And I had big problems to solve with my team at Lifetime, especially with talent. So 2 things happened. One, about 6-7 years ago, I was so frustrated with doing mass hiring, because we had to hire 21,000 people on average every year, another 4,000 or 5,000 new people. We had 9,000 seasonal workers we had to hire during the summer, with lifeguards and bistro workers and childcare and kids camp. So I had massive for our company, was massive problems. And I knew I couldn't staff enough recruiters to get the job done.
Gotcha.
So how did I help my recruiters be as efficient as possible? I had built this Frankenstein monster of technology to try to figure out how to answer that question. And I was so frustrated with what we had built for all sorts of reasons, right? Duplication of effort, costs. You couldn't get one source of truth. Our recruiters were frustrated. Adoption was low. I said, we've got to figure something out. There's got to be someone that's got an answer where we can start to think about our talent pool at Lifetime in a different way. And so we went out again to look in the marketplace, and way led on the way where I found this company called Phenom. And we did the full vetting against a bunch of other people in the space. And I said, you know what? Phenom's the one that we want to come in. And so they came into our office, because I was at Lifetime at the time, not at Phenom.
Sure.
And co-founder and CEO Mahi came in with that sales meeting. And I came into the meeting and sat down at the table, and it was awesome. I came down and said, hey, thanks everybody for coming. I know we want to have a lot to get through, but will you start by just telling me, why does Phenom exist? Why are you here? Why do you do what you do? It's an important question, right? Because that origin really helps set the tone for where you're going. I heard Mahi's voice at the end of the table, and he said, there's one purpose for this company, one purpose alone. We want to help 1 billion people find the right job. And I was like, I looked down the table. I'm like, I'm going to know that guy. Yeah. I love that passion, that belief. And so at the end of the meeting, I came down, shook his hand. Let's connect. We actually ended up signing a contract, integrating Phenom, and Phenom worked for us. So over the next 7 years, right, Phenom moved from being a vendor to a partner. I got to know Mahi really well, became kind of an advisor, a support for the company. We innovated a bunch of stuff with Phenom, started new stuff with you guys, which was really fun. Fast forward then, as I was exiting Lifetime, I had the opportunity to have a conversation with the team here. And they said, you know what, based on the growth of the organization and based on who you are and you've known our story so long, you can help us as a CHRO inside Phenom to help us grow. You can also help us because you have a story to tell about Phenom. That's that chief evangelist thing. And I think people could think that's a little bit of a gimmick, but it's not.
Sure.
Right? I believe in this technology, that it's purpose-driven and that it absolutely helps people create efficiencies in their organization so they can actually focus on what they're supposed to focus on, which is transforming people, helping them become their best version of themselves, and spend time growing and giving people a sight line to where they can go in the company. If I'm so busy recruiting and interviewing all the time, I don't have time to do that.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I didn't know that. I thought I was going to take a little time off, and I really didn't because Phenom called, and I'm here because I'm a purpose-driven professional. I love to know that I'm doing something that actually is contributing to the world. And so moving from, being a health and fitness answer for everyone, right, to be a positive place with those positive ions going around, to be able to walk into Phenom and meet these amazing people that are helping us, right, help companies be part of 1 billion people finding the right job, sign me up.
Yeah.
Right? Sign me up to help this organization transform and transcend. Sign me up to be able to talk about what we're doing to other CHROs, because if you're a Luddite, right, you're kind of like, oh, I don't like technology. It's a bother. It seems like an interruption to my world.
Yeah.
You're missing the point, right? As a CHRO, you've got to get into it. If you're not a native to the culture, you've got to get in and start to learn the language, because when you do, you'll start to see how this platform, right, a platform like this can transform your entire business.
Yeah. And the world needs contributions, right? You said you want to make a contribution to the world. I think if we're ever living through a time where the world needs contributions, this is it. And you are now in a position to be a multiplier. Your small dent in the universe can now expand, and I think that's so excited. We're excited to have you on board.
I appreciate that.
The challenges that you described 7 years ago, not having a single source of truth for all of your data, not being able to equip your recruiters and your staff with the ability to find that efficiency. Those challenges have been heightened, over the past couple of years. So much has changed, right? We talk about the great talent shortages that companies are experiencing. We talk about the high volume hiring that's happening, that needs to happen at scale across so many different frontline organizations. We talk about the great resignation or the big quit or the sustained resignation. There's 30 different buzzwords that we could say for it. It really doesn't matter what we call it. The data is telling the story. All of these things are kind of coalescing, right, coming together. And I'm really curious, from your perspective, how are you seeing talent transform? How are you seeing the mindset of the talent transform? Or how have they transformed over the past 2 years? Because what I'd love to do is get inside the mind of a CHRO, get inside your mind, pick your brain and start to understand, once we know how talent is transforming, how can we transform as HR organizations, right, to best serve and connect with that talent?
Yeah. I was really impacted in my real experience with how talent was changing. I was doing several searches or helping with several searches, and I was doing a board search for a new board member and working with a PE firm to do that. I was also looking for a VP inside the organization. And then I was looking for a couple of more kind of frontline type of professionals inside of the human capital organization. This was at Lifetime. And just recently, though, kind of pandemic-ish kind of time frame.
Sure.
And every single one, Tom, I couldn't believe it. Like I interview hundreds of people a year, like
Sure.
hardcore interviews, notes, the whole thing, do collaboration, we do it all. In my years of hundreds of interviews, I've never had this happen, but it became a trend, right? 3 or more, you're kind of like, oh, there's something happening here. Every single person from the board, potential board members, all the way to the people that were frontline. When I stopped at the end of our interview, I would often say, so what questions do you have for me? Because when you say what questions do you have for me, it actually opens them up psychologically to have permission to ask questions, or real questions,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
And so I asked, what questions do you have for me? Every single one of them asked me. So I've been on your website and I noticed that you only have men on your executive team. Is there a plan to change that? Are you going to actually get more diversity? Are you going to get more women? What's the plan there with your executive team? Now, that's a great question. But I said to myself, how many candidates that want to work someplace would take the chance, not the risk, the chance to ask that question? That informed me, I think, of what we're looking at globally. If we think about the great quit or something, whatever, the big quit or whatever.
Yep.
What has informed me is that there is an empowerment happening with people that are now saying, I have something to offer an organization just as much as this organization has something to offer me. And I understand it more deeply than I ever have before. Does that make sense? So now I'm actually looking at what I want to do, where I want to do it, and how I want to do it, completely different. I'm walking in empowered. I'm like, that's awesome. Because what you do is you get the whole person now. Now the question is, as CHROs, how do we respond? So I would say that the great resignation, right? Right now we have 11, 12 million jobs available.
Yep.
So like 5 million more jobs than our people are ready to work. I would tell you, it's like having an engagement survey at your organization. We got a global engagement survey. And you know what? Companies are not engaging.
We're failing.
Right?
Yep.
Workers, people that need to work, because people aren't, independently wealthy. They need to work. They're finding out ways to stand on the sideline until our organizations decide that we are going to be more people-centric potentially, right? It's not a bad or good, right? It's just an opportunity and a challenge for us to take a look and get up on the balcony of where we've been as human resource professionals, as CHROs, as CEOs, and say, can we get to the same outcomes, right? We have shareholders that are looking for profits. We have revenue numbers that we have to hit. We have pressure in the market. We have to stay competitive. With all of those business pressures, can we get on the balcony of our organization and start to contemplate what it would look like to actually invite this group that's standing on the sideline and say, engage with us, because I think you're going to find a home here.
Yep.
That's a completely different thing, right? It's not an afterthought. It is the thought, right? So that's it.
You're describing this dynamic change, right? Where the employer previously could sit back and say, you need this, right? You need me. And now the employee who's interviewing, the talent who's looking, can say, no, you need me, right? You need me to help you. And I think that dynamic shift is happening really fast. I don't know that employers are catching up or changing or shifting their dynamic fast enough to be able to meet talent where they are. And I think for a lot of folks who are sitting on the sidelines, as you mentioned, a lot of times, from what I've seen, from what I've read, it is the product of burnout. It is the product of just being stuck, kind of in a position or stuck in a scenario or a situation that just hasn't been working for them, especially when you pile on all of the changes that have happened due to the pandemic. Shifting the hours that you would work, shifting the location or the ability of where you can work, when you can work. So I want to dive into that because I know that mental health is a really important topic for you. So your finger on the pulse, of the mental health of our talent. What is it at today, and what can leaders really be doing or thinking about to move it forward in the right direction?
Yeah, I mean, the challenge earlier, because this is the challenge that I'm facing, right, as a CHRO, is around culture and who and how we respond to the marketplace.
Sure.
Now let's flip it, right? That's what you're doing. You're flipping it and saying, now from the perspective of what's impacted the workforce on why they're choosing to vote, right? To give their engagement survey as I'm stepping out. The pandemic, hopefully we'll never have to live another one in our lifetime, right?
Sure.
And the learning though in it, when you look at large group dynamics, there's a lot of stuff that went in, and obviously we had all sorts of other pieces that were shaking the foundation of everything and all that we were over that pandemic, right? And I came from Minneapolis, right? We were in the hotbed of George Floyd and all of those things. And I got to tell you, the team of people at Lifetime that reached out to me to help me be able to sense make, right, through that process. I'll be grateful for these team members, right? General managers and area directors and frontline people that knew me a little bit called me and said, Jess, I can help you make some sense of this, right? I live right down there. Let me give you a picture. It just takes me all the way back. But as far as the employee goes, we have been shifted and changed forever. So that's the challenge to organizations. Hurry up. Get moving. You've got to figure this out because we're not going back, right? And there was a really interesting study from, I think it was Fortune magazine last year, and they were talking to a bunch of CEOs saying, hey, when do you want people back into the office? And they were all like, well, we really want people to take their time and all that stuff. But really at the end of the day, the survey came out to the conclusion, every CEO wants the butts back in the seat. It makes them feel good because they're immigrants to this change, right? They just want to have control,
familiarity,
and they're not realizing that control is coming from a way different place, right? When you join and partner, rather than I have something you need, employee, so come in here. Now I'm partnered with you. Let's do something together. Completely different. So we're hopefully moving through and getting into kind of that third stage of the pandemic, and we're going to see it dissipate. Hope, right? Hope.
Sure.
Got to be prepared. On the other hand, what we know is the next real crisis that we're facing, and it's already here, is the mental health fallout of isolation, right? Of people having their lives upended, the loss that people had with literally losing loved ones, right? Being in the mix, you think about being in some of those kind of ground zero spots, right? People have they've been impacted in a significant way. And for organizations just want to move on as business as usual, which I don't think a lot of organizations are, quite frankly, is just not the challenge. The challenge is to say, how do we destigmatize and normalize the conversation about mental health?
Sure.
Let's make it something that we can talk about. And we have talk tracks and we have training with our leaders that can actually join with someone and understand it and empathize and say, yes, I hear your journey. How can we help? Then how do you build real structures to be able to help people in their process? And there are people that are making it through are okay. There are people that are in crisis. The real question I think that organizations need to ask as people are coming into work with a lot of that energy still, right? A lot of stuff they're still trying to make sense of is how do we help? And actually, this is something, my wife is a mental health professional, and she's termed this phrase I think is really powerful that kind of sums this up. It's how do we as organizations get in our employees' lives and invite them in between I'm okay and I need help. There's a huge bell curve of people that are, I'm not okay.
Sure.
I don't need help, but I need something. And so what is that coaching? What is that counseling? What are those things that you can do to be able to help them? And sometimes it's just helping them figure out their right path to get to the right job.
Right.
Just a new job. And certainly technology can help that too.
Yeah. No, that's super helpful. You mentioned earlier kind of the container, the salad bowl. We are inviting folks to come back into the salad bowl, right? And it might not be the most comfortable position for a lot of folks for all the reasons that you said. This idea of destigmatizing the conversations. What are some tactics, that we can share, that you've experimented with in the past to really start, an organization who has done none of this, to start moving into the right direction? You mentioned training managers. I think that's fantastic. Are there other things that you've seen, just some quick tips, that people can start to explore?
Yep. So organizations should start at the senior level by actually creating a point of view. having some experts come in and give them some consultation on what are some effective programs that work. So get some knowledge. Let's not make it a mile wide and an inch deep. So really get some knowledge base, then decide that you're going to put time, talent, and treasure against it. So you're budgeting for it, you're planning for it, you're hiring for it. Once you do that, then now you have voice, right? You can create a voice, and it's really important that if you can start at the top with a CEO, a CHRO, right, a CFO, where they're speaking to and giving permission to the organization, I think it's really important. There are structures and systems then that allow people to be able to enter into what they need, right? Whether it's a stipend of some sort that people can use. Phenom has a great program that allows people to use a certain dollar amount towards mental health. That alone validates the fact that the conversation is real.
Yep.
The other thing I think is, this is where some of that armor has to come off of our senior executives, is they need to actually be willing to share their own personal story, right? I have a journey of mental health, right? When I was confined in my home, not wondering what was going to happen with the world, I felt like I got triggered by anxiety that I'd never been triggered before. And this is how I'm working through it. So those personal anecdotes from senior level people is important as well. And then I think once you decide to do that, know that this is a journey, not a destination. Let's establish it as a programmatic process, keep it real, keep it on the top of the conversation, and then start to run that program long-term, right? Knowing that it is a service that you may never tangibly go, oh, we can put a finger on the ROI, but it's there. Commit to it. And when we do that as a senior leader group, now all of a sudden people are given permission, because it's right there on the surface. Right. People want to have permission to say, I need help. People want to come and be their best version of themselves at work. If they're not doing that, something's getting in the way. And as leaders and as organizational people that are building systems and organizations, we need to be the ones who help figure out how to get those things out of the way.
Yeah.
Right?
One of the things that I think I've heard so many people vocalize and talk about is this idea of disconnecting from the workforce because they don't feel connected to the purpose of the organization, right? And purpose has been a critical element of your story. You've already shared that with us today. You've also shared how when Mahi was able to articulate the purpose of Phenom, you looked down at the end of the table and you said, "That's the guy. I need to know that guy because I feel the purpose in my bones. Like I can feel it, and I don't feel like workers across the board are connecting with this purpose, right? And I know this is critical to you. Are you seeing that too? Are you feeling that too? And do you think this is contributing to retention challenges? Great resignation, all the above.
Yeah. Again, I'm trying to be, this is more of an observation than a criticism, but I think some organizations are tone deaf, holding their breath and waiting for things to go back to normal, especially around the work we do, right? There are organizations, there's professional organizations, right? And their goal is to win a Super Bowl. And you're like, well, what does that mean, right? What does that mean for me? And what does it mean for the people that work for me? There's got to be some more contribution there. And so I've come up with a kind of a 4-step process to think through as an organization. And if you're in an organization that really at the end of the day, if you're looking at the clear, cold facts, is your end game is to make more money than last year, right? To sell more stuff than last year, whether the quality is there or not. I mean, you might be in an organization kind of like that. What we have to do is we have to start, and it's a 4-step process that I'd be happy to talk to anybody about. So if you're interested, call me. I think it can be transformational, but action, all right? So we have to start with, let's really readdress why you exist in the world, right? In a world that is awash with too much stuff. Why do we exist? Let's find that out. Let's look at the cold, hard facts. Let's actually be radically candid with each other. And then if we find that we're askew upon mission and vision, that we can't actually go and say, if we wanted to go and become a certified B Corp, could we become a certified B Corp? No. Then what's getting in the way? 99 of 100 of our things are getting in the way. Great. Then our mission is to actually change our organization to still make money, but get rid of those 99 things, right? Whatever that is, but we got to figure out what is our mission. And if the end game of your company is not something that's super like, wow, right? It just does a really good practical thing in the world. Those are needed. if you want to hire people and they're being attracted by maybe companies that are going to be able to say, hey, we do all of these wonderful things, your mission doesn't have to necessarily always be about the end result of your organization. The mission actually can be about who you are. I have a really good friend who owns a franchise, and the franchise hires hourly workers. They're seasonal and they're temp. And he's made it his goal to change their lives. He makes stuff, right? People come in and buy food and they eat it. But he wants that great stuff, but he works with the people, and he's literally transformed people's lives. People that don't have the education they need, that are now managing these facilities and taking responsibility for 30 or 40 people and a couple $1 million of revenue. They're buying homes, they're investing in college for their kids. That's mission, right? So I won't belabor all of them, but we have to get serious about a mission in your organization. Then mindset, right? Mindset shifts everything. When we change our mind on something, we change the way we see the world. Mission, mindset. Now your people buy in. Everything, I believe, has to be around service, right? Serving the person in front of me, right? What are the three truths?
Sure.
You know, what's the most important time, Tom?
Yep.
Right now.
Yep.
Who's the most important person? You and me, because we're the only ones here.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
And what's the most important thing to do? To do good.
Yes.
Right. So when we think about then service as a calling, wow, if we actually did that as a company and an organization, and we help treat our people that way, then they go out and they're more civil with the people that they consume with and go with. All of a sudden, our community just starts to take a break, right? Service and then action. Don't just sit and say you believe something, do something, right?
Yeah.
Move, let's go. Let's take some action and change lives, change your own life, right? Every year I'm like, okay, what are my goals? Because last year was not as good as I can be. I'm a continuous lifelong learner. Now let's take some action. Let's get at it, right? So mission, mindset, service, action. And I believe it's a formula that can really help companies transform.
Yeah. Listen, we're here on Talent Experience Live. I'm getting fired up, right? Jess is getting fired up. You know, the energy is alive here in Ambler, Pennsylvania. It's not always sunny in Philadelphia. It's a little cloudy today, but hey, we're bringing it today. So if you're tuning in on LinkedIn or YouTube or Facebook, be sure to chime into the comments. If you have any questions for Jess, we'd love to answer those. And again, you know, Jess looked right into the camera and he said, if you want to have this conversation with me, I believe it can be transformational. So let us know if you want to continue these conversations, because we're all about helping folks find their purpose, right? And it's more important now than ever. I think you touched on all the right points there. And you know, if you're a seasonal worker, if you're a temp worker, you know, if you're driving a truck, you know, sometimes it can be really hard to connect with the purpose of the organization. You know, one trigger word for me has always been work-life balance, right? Because it's a lot of times when it's discussed, it's all about, okay, I'm gonna shut down here and then transfer over to this other pocket of my life where there is no work, and then I'm going to transfer over here where there's just work and no personal life, and you're trying to create dividers, you know. But personally, and speaking for myself, you know, Phenom is a part of my purpose and a part of my life as an individual, right? So it's more of a work-life blend. And as you were talking, that was really resonating with me. It's not about creating these really strict, hard dividers, you know, to say that this is my work purpose and this is my life purpose. It's about finding where they commingle, you know. So I'm curious, you know, if you've explored that concept too. Like when you think about work-life balance, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think you know, you're hitting on another piece, right? Of this kind of rampant and kind of long-term change that organizations need to address. And this is certainly one that I've been across the board in organizations I've been in and organizations I've consulted with. Across the board, people are really struggling in how to figure that out. I think we know that the obvious risk in the work-life blend or work-life balance from a corporate standpoint is there's potentially an unconscious bias that employees will obviously blend more of their personal than their professional, right? Yep. On the flip side, I think employees are seeing and feeling, I never turn off because I literally have my mobile device and I have my computer connected all the time and I'm working from home. So I literally walk 15 feet to the spare bedroom that I have an office set up in. And so when do I turn it off? And I think that's the opportunity. I believe that with the world is expanding. It's also shrinking. We have access everywhere, right? We have access to everything. I do think that when you build an organization that's built on the speed of trust, this idea that, you know, you have your job requirements, we have expectations, and we expect you to hit the number, whatever that is. I think that's a good start. I do think that if we're going to do a work-life blend or a work-life balance conversation, it can't just be, again, like the Great Resignation, it's a great little ism to say, hey, have work-life balance.
Right. Yeah.
What does that mean in our organization? Let's have that charter so people know that they have permission to turn off, and we have permission as an organization to ask them to turn on, and that there's work product there along the way. Because I think people don't know how, we don't know how to do it ourselves. It's really hard. So I do think that it's something that all organizations should look at. If you're providing a service, you have to be physically somewhere. That's a different matter. But if you have a knowledge worker base, right, people that don't necessarily have to be in a place, really start to think about it. Don't let it happen to you as an organization. Decide to define it and really get a good understanding of what your people are looking for, and then decide what the risks are. Just like people driving to the office every day, there's risks in that. Decide what the risks are, marginalize the variables, predict the result, and then walk into it. That's what I would say. So I do think that there's puts and calls on both sides of the ledger on that. And I also think this is what the normal is. I think people, if they watch this podcast 15 years from now, they're going to they're talking about what? That's just what it is, right?
Yeah, totally.
And so I think we're working through a change process, and change is hard, right? Three-step change process is you have to unfreeze, right? So you're frozen, you unfreeze, and you have to move into a new world, and then you have to refreeze. So you kind of get into this kind of new kind of stability. We're in the unfreeze mode right now. We will be for a while. And that's super uncomfortable for people.
But, you know, as HR leaders, you know, and you mentioned this, helping folks become the best version of themselves, we can't always necessarily expect them to navigate this on their own, right? So it does really feel like it's the role of the leader to help navigate this new world that we're moving into. So I really appreciate that as well. You know, we're coming up on time, so I want to touch on one other topic, you know, that we've spoken about before. It is a critical topic, and of course, that is diversity, inclusion, and belonging. And you've had such great thoughts on this, you know, and I just want to kind of get into that conversation and really understand where do you sit with this? You know, it's a big conversation. I know a lot of leaders are hesitant to really dive fully into it. One of the things you mentioned earlier that I thought was really profound was you had your people reach out to you and help you make sense of things that you needed help making sense of. You know, so why don't we get into that and let us know, you know, what are your thoughts on where we're at today, and every CHRO who's listening, who might be tuning into this. And I really hope that if you're not a CHRO and you are listening to this, send it to your CHRO, because we want to make sure that they get an opportunity to listen to this conversation. So what are your thoughts on diversity and inclusion and the state of it today?
I well up a little bit with emotion on this one, because I think, like a lot of leaders, we had to confront the things that we were ignoring. And I think that was the first thing, right? I talked about it earlier about having to face your own brutal facts. And so as a white male, having to look and understand and embrace my own understanding of what privilege is and understanding my point in the world. And then coming back around, and this is going to be a very short version of a long journey is the destination thing, right? Coming back around and actually having a moment in time when I was looking and we were building up an inclusion advisory board in our company. And I was talking to some really powerful voices in our organization, and you know, women, people of color, the LGBTQ community we had. And I realized, because someone had been talking to me, coaching me, helping me, right? Because I needed help. That's the important thing, is to ask for help, right? Help me know what I don't know. Like, the worst kind of ignorance is not knowing that you don't know. And so walking through that, I was able to look and come up as the only white person at the table, right? Being able to say, I have the right to be in this conversation, and actually believing it. Once I was able to get that acceptance, right, and walk into the conversation where I could say, I'm here to learn, and I'm also here because I have a right to be a part of the conversation. I'm not like uninvited. was really powerful for me as my own shared kind of story. And I was able to share that with that team that were helping me. And they're like, yes, that's exactly right, right? How do you get allyship unless everybody's willing to get on the ship, right? And move forward. So what I would say is that this is one of those things where there's some business decisions you can make, and there's some things you can do in your professional life that are just like, I'm going to do it and it's thing, and I don't really have to think about it again, right? Sign the contract, go. There are things then in your world that are going to interrupt everything and change everything about who you are. And that's the duality of this process for everyone, right? Even people that have been in a lived experience for their whole life, people that have been pounding on the doors of corporations saying you need to do this. Even they're having to go through change because they're now, the doors are wide open. So they're like, oh, how do we now manifest this in a real way? So philosophically, that's a little bit of it. But again, I think very similar to that mental health process that we talked about deciding that it's something that not only is going to be today, but it's forever. Right? The journey is the destination. Let's establish how we want to be. And then it is, I think, it's always going to be learning and education. It's then about transparency. Then it's about, again, so back to that action thing. What are the things that you can do now? What are the things that are going to take time? Do them as fast as possible. But I had a really wise leader at Lifetime, and he talked about with the team saying, let's start with inclusion. If we can do inclusion, diversity and equity come with it. Right. Inclusion. How do we create that environment? And that, I think, started us on a journey differently than we had been on before, and started a trajectory, right? Speed and accuracy. Like we started going toward a goal of being an inclusive place. And then the outcomes of that have been, really significant. And so, again, it's really hard to talk in detail about it. But again, I'd love to explore that more with anybody who's listening. But it's about a personal walk, then a professional outcome as well. But it can't be, well, I got to do this thing at work. Nope, it's everything. Read, learn, talk, make mistakes, apologize, move a different way, get out, carry a sign, and yell if you need to. And ask for help, as you mentioned,
100%. And I thought that was incredible. We have a lot of great comments coming in. So Andrew said, when I solicited questions from the audience, Andrew said no questions, but just wanted to say it's awesome seeing Jess in his element. I could listen to him all day long. So you already have a fan here, Jess.
Awesome. Thank you.
John Ryle says, this is great. It's awesome to hear from executives that it's more than just business. So many other things truly matter. Patrizia chiming in, just echoing mission, mindset, service, action, the 4 steps, right? And I think that you laid that out perfectly. Also says I could listen to him all day. Unfortunately, we don't have all day, but I'm so excited to have Jess here. And you mentioned last time, we can obviously go deeper on any one of these topics. So to my benefit, selfishly, now that Jess is in the house, right? Jess is a part of the Phenom family. We're going to be having Jess on future episodes, right? So if you want to hear Jess and I talk deeper about any one of these topics, or if there's a topic we didn't cover that you want to hear, let us know. Let myself know on LinkedIn, let Patrizia know on LinkedIn, and we'll be happy to have Jess back on where we could go deep into a specific topic, because of course we're just scratching the surface. That's all we're doing. And as you also mentioned, it's all about the journey. To think that a single one size fits all project is going to solve any one of these problems, or one size fits all program, or simply hiring a set person saying like, okay, we have this person, or we have a chief diversity officer now, so all of our problems are solved. Like, that's not how it's going to play out.
That's right.
So super excited to have you kind of be with us and facilitating these conversations and bringing your expertise. And I know that you're going to be engaging with so many CHROs out there and learning from them and bringing their expertise to us as well. So couldn't be happier. We've got some great folks in the chat too. Jennifer's here, Deepali's here, Nicole is here, Lori is here. A lot of people tuning in. So thank you so much for tuning in. I want to selfishly bring up, one very broad question, which of course we can talk at great lengths in the future as well. But, talking about all of these hiring challenges that talent acquisition is facing, What is kind of your, again, we could spend an hour talking about this, but what is your overall take on like, what is the role of technology? When we think about technology, and as you mentioned, a lot of leaders, they might be hesitant, to really dive in, and you talked about cobbling together point solutions and the Frankenstein approach that you've taken in the past. But we know that talent acquisition teams are hurting. Recruiters are hard pressed to find the people that they need. And you've mentioned a little bit about your story, but technology, like where do you see that sitting in the conversation?
Yeah. If we're looking at anybody that's in technology on the cutting edge, the bleeding edge, we know that AI and machine learning is in everything, right? And so we really appreciate it in Spotify or when Netflix, suggests something for us.
Yep, sure.
And that's great, right? From a consumer standpoint. But how do we practically make those things applicable to the work that we're doing every day? And I do think having 5 million more jobs than our workers looking for, what is your value proposition as an organization? Who are you? What are you paying? All those things have to be asked. At the end of the day, though, you will never be able to staff enough recruiters to meet the need. You will never be able to have enough intelligence on a Excel document or on just an ATS somewhere sitting there that when you have no brand and no career point of view that is actually going out to this place where people have changed. They are empowered like never before. They are saying, I'm interviewing you as much as you're interviewing me, Jess. What are you doing about these things that I'm really, really focused on? Purpose behind what I'm going to do for you, right? I experienced that live. So when we have a new group of people that are saying, prove to me that I want to work there, here's what I would say is that I'm a firm believer in a psychological contract between a corporation, the company, and their people. And that psychological contract, that sense of there's a commitment I have to you and you're going to make a commitment to me. And we don't want to break that because that erodes trust. To win, here's the deal. We need a career point of view, right? What is your career? What is your corporate and employment brand? How are you expressing that psychological contract to the people that could work for you and the people that do work for you? Then, how in the world are you going to keep it all organized without some help from a technology platform that actually knows Tom from the time that we found Tom passively at another place, got him interested because we have a great point of view on a branded career site that specifically spoke to you, offered up a video for you that told you that there are people like you here that you'd really like way more than the other place that you're working. Then you actually say, yep, I'd like to apply in 3 clicks with a chatbot. I get an automatic schedule so I can know that I'm talking to whoever I'm talking to and I'm set and ready to go. And not one of my people have touched that, but you, Tom, have felt like you've been taken care of and nurtured. No one can do that, right? We can't muster enough sourcers to do that. So I would tell you that it is everywhere and it's in everything. So if you're not doing a full-fledged program, now I know Tom as a pre, now I know Tom at hire, now I know Tom when he's in, Tom is planning his career and I see where he's going and learning and talking and here's his career track. And now Tom is in another job a year later in our company feeling really empowered and enlivened like he's never been before. That's the power of AI, right? That's the power of technology, a full-fledged technology kind of talent experience across the whole base. Yeah. And the good news is I lived it, right? So I experienced that process with Lifetime, which is part of the reason I'm passionate about helping 1 billion people find the right job.
Yeah. We say unified platform. I think unified platform takes on kind of that buzzword, that you hear it a lot, but really what we're talking about is the unified journey, right? And being able to unify the journey with data and with intelligence, right? Yeah. And it's all happening. So we're super excited here at Phenom with what we're doing selfishly, so if you want to continue to have those conversations with us, please reach out. We'd love to engage with you and help you understand how that ties into our purpose of helping 1 billion people find the right job. So Jess, this has been absolutely amazing. Again, thank you so much for all the folks who have tuned in today. And again, if you want to hear us talk about any additional topics, reach out to me or Patrizia. We'd love to get those on the calendar. Jess, any final words for any of our listeners out there? Final thoughts.
I think there's a lot to mull over because we
covered a lot of ground.
We got around today. I just want to thank you. I think again, what you're doing, being on the other side and watching it's fun, but being with you in the studio, Super awesome. So I think for me as a CHRO here at Phenom, but a thought leader in the kind of the industry, I just want to make sure that people know they're invited to literally reach out. And if they'd like some thought leadership, they like anything that we've talked about today, I'm happy to engage with them. And I'm not talking about an email. I'm talking about a conversation if you'd like to have one. So that's what I'm here for, and excited to continue to build a relationship with your followership and with what Phenom is doing.
I am equally excited, super excited to have you here, a seat at the table. It's been amazing. As I mentioned, I've been doing this show from my little dungeon at home. So it's exciting to come into the office and engage face-to-face again. This is kind of the new normal that we talk about, right? Is getting back into the office and engaging with folks. So Jess, this has been absolutely amazing. I'm already looking forward to having you on a future episode, and I'm really excited for all the amazing conversations that we'll continue to have and that you'll have with our audience and with our amazing customers as well. So thank you so much for joining in today. Really appreciate it. Again, we have Nicole, Lori, Deepali. We had John tune in. Hank joined in. I love Hank. Thank you so much. Christina, Sarah, amazing crowd today. So thank you. Be sure to tune in every single week, Thursday at 12 p.m. Eastern. Next week, we have an amazing episode. So next week we have Christine Kenzie, who's a fellow Phenom. She's a friend of the show. She's been on a couple episodes. Christine's going to join us to talk about the evolution of the role of the recruiter and how recruiters are now in a position where they can change the way that they work, right? As we introduce some of the technology that Jess was just talking about, recruiters are finding more time in their day. They're no longer spending all of their hours scheduling interviews, screening candidates, right? Technology is really taking on a lot of those tasks. So as recruiters are finding themselves with all of this time, they can evolve. They can change the way that they work. They can multiply the value that they bring, to their organization. And part of that requires a little bit of unlearning, right? Unlearning the way that they've always done things and do things differently. So Christine's going to join us, and we're going to talk about how you can unlearn and really change your mindset on how you approach your work. So I'm really excited for that. So if you're a recruiter or sourcer, definitely tune into that episode next week. LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, 12 p.m. Eastern. We really will be excited to have you. As always, thank you so much for your time and attention. It means the world to us. We wouldn't do it if we didn't have an audience. So thank you so much for being here, and look forward to the next episode. Jess, thanks again.
Thank you.
Welcome back to the future. Special thank you to Tom Tate and Jess Elmquist. That was Inside the Mind of a CHRO. If you want to check out the blog recap of that, it is on our Phenom blog. That's www.phenom.com/blog. You can also catch the episode with Christine Kenzie that Tom mentioned at the end there, as well as a brand new blog that we just dropped today. Alert, new blog just dropped. It is all around the Degreed and Phenom integration, about unleashing your workforce from within. So definitely check that out if you're in talent management or if you're in talent acquisition and looking to really promote career pathing within your organization. This was an awesome episode. I loved hearing everyone's favorite salad dressings. I know we didn't get a chance to ask Jess, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say he's a no dressing type of guy. Lifetime experience, back from his previous careers. I think he cares, a little bit about his fitness, about his health. So no dressing for him. As you know, for me, balsamic vinaigrette. Lots of people love garlic expressions. Shout out to Maggie, shout out Anna, shout out Andrea, Rebecca, Jen. It was a pleasure having you all on the show today. And once again, thank you to Tom Tate and Jess Elmquist. With that being said, I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend. Enjoy week 1 of the NFL preseason. Lots of exciting football happening there. And tune in next week. We're going to have Talent EXP hop on, so you don't want to miss that episode. And then I think in the coming weeks, we're going to be coming to you live from HR Tech. So definitely like, subscribe, share the channel. And if you can't attend HR Tech, definitely catch up on some of our content there. Everyone have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next week.